All right, guys, welcome to the Buff Show. This is going to be a good episode today. Today we have Adam Allred in the house, and we're just going to dive into your story, your journey, and your successes and failures with business and entrepreneurship and everything like that. So welcome. Thank you for coming on here today. This is kind of funny how this got started, because originally, I've been around you on and off for the past few years through Nick. Ran into you a few times at the office. You guys came up and did a workout in the gym.
Sweet gym, by the way.
Yeah, no, that was fun.
That's a cool setup you got up there.
Well,
bro.
dude, what you guys ended with, so they had all their kind of your top reps, right? Your team leads come up, and how many guys do we have? Probably 15?
At least. Yeah, it was like maybe 20. There was a bunch of us up there.
Yeah, 15 to 20. They were doing kind of a retreat up in Eden and needed a gym. You guys went for a run in the morning in the snow.
Yeah.
And then came over to my place.
Because it was like 3 feet of snow.
Yeah.
Like it was dumping.
It had snowed a ton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the roads weren't clear. Like we were slipping and falling. Like we were running on these roads. Because it was like 2 feet of snow on the road.
Yeah. And then you came up and we did a group workout in the gym. That was pretty intense too.
Yeah.
By the end of it, it was just like it was almost like the gym was like a sweaty sauna just from everybody's heat and sweat and everything.
I was writing
like
on
that.
your mirrors like messages and stuff because it was all like fogged up.
Yeah. And then I'll never forget what you guys ended with. It was that plank challenge.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But everybody had to blindfold themselves.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the idea was you would blindfold yourself, and then because you could never see when other people were falling, everybody was giving almost their max effort because you didn't know if you were the last one in or the first one out, right?
Right.
And then, it was crazy.
And you could kind of tell the longer you were in because more and more voices were shouting and cheering as guys were checking out. So you could kind of gauge by the sound of like the people yelling and cheering and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. That was crazy. I don't know. I don't remember how long we planked for, but it was a long time.
Yeah.
And I just remember my abs were just so tight. Because you get a bunch of males in the room and hey, who can hold the plank the longest? It's going to get pretty
contest, dude. Everybody's hopped up on testosterone. We did the ice plunge before, so we got our dopamine rush going. You have those 4 ice baths out back, and we're breaking the ice and sitting in there, and then we had your sauna. This is a sweet setup.
Yeah. Man. Yeah. No, that was fun. That was a crazy experience. And then I went to one of your guys' event with, what's your sales company? Ninefold.
Ninefold, yeah.
Yeah. And you had Jesse Itzler there speaking. That was sweet.
Is it? Well, dude, that guy's amazing.
Dude, he's a stud.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was awesome. That was such a good event there. So we've hung out together, but haven't really sat down, and I don't know a whole lot about your story. So this will be fun to have you on. Originally, when I was talking to Nick, I was like, I'm looking for somebody that can do an overview of pest control with homeowners and tips and tricks and things like that. And you guys actually, so you have a few businesses, right?
Yeah. So
Greenline Pest Control is one of them, right? Can you give everybody kind of a background of what that is, where it's located, what you guys do there?
Yeah, so Greenline's based out of Ogden, just home pest control, mostly residential. We do some commercial stuff, but mostly it's door to door. That's how we generate it with the guys out knocking, and we've expanded our marketing beyond that. But that's how we built up the base of our Greenline. Greenline's one of a lot of different pest control companies. So Greenline's based out of Ogden. It's our one here for Utah, but we've got branches all over the country.
Yeah,
and they all have different names. They're different LLCs, but they all fall under the umbrella of Ninefold.
Gotcha. So Greenline, I looked it up. You guys have just under 1,500 reviews. Awesome reviews.
Stellar reviews, right? Yeah, we have really good reviews.
Which is amazing. You look up other pest controls in the area, and you guys, Northern Utah, you guys are knocking it out of the park there. So if you need any pest control services here in Utah as a homeowner, these guys can hook you up. Any special services you guys do? I'm sure it's just monthly, quarterly, spraying for bugs and pests and stuff like that, rodents.
The general package is that we come out once every season, scheduled. So 4 times a month or year, 4 times a year. So once every 3 months or so.
Yeah.
And we bill generally monthly. And then we have a warranty program that goes with that. It's pretty typical.
Okay.
Where you get free reservices if you have any issues in between. But what gives us all those really good reviews is our servicing team is amazing.
Yeah.
We have really good sales teams here that work well with customers, but it's real once we hand it off to the servicing guys, Yeah, I'm convinced there's nobody that does the servicing better than our Greenline guys in Utah. They're so good.
Which is huge. Because it seems like a lot of the sales companies, like they might have a really good sales force, but then the service might not be as good.
Right.
So, and I think the reviews speak for that with you guys, where like you wouldn't have 1,500, almost 5-star reviews if you weren't doing.
And those aren't ones we paid for. I mean, those are organic reviews. Like, just because our guys they're not just good at what they do for taking care of the bugs, but they're really good at dealing with customers, like really personable, and really try to go out of their way to give them an all-star experience.
No, that's awesome. So if anybody needs pest control services here in Utah, hit up Greenline. These guys will take care of you, and you can just Google them. You'll find them super easy. Any certain areas, like do you guys service, like do you go down to like Salt Lake County or
this year we do. So our market footprint has been pretty small, like North Salt Lake up to Brigham City. We worked our way up into Tremont a little bit last year. But this year, I think we're going to be hitting Logan. We're going to be going all the way down into, we'll probably make our way all the way down to Provo, maybe as far south as Payson this year. So our footprint's expanded. We got a lot of guys out here this summer knocking doors, and we're going to blow up Utah. We'll take over the market.
I love it. No, it looks like you guys already are. So that's awesome. And then can you tell us a little bit about Ninefold? Like what's Ninefold and what do you guys do there?
Yeah, so Ninefold is basically the umbrella company for all these other companies. Most of them are pest control. We have some marketing companies. We have a little bit of real estate we've toyed around with a little bit. And then we've got a garbage company out in Nebraska that all falls essentially under Ninefold. And Ninefold's just where we hire guys and basically like our human resource company, hire all the people that then go out and work for these other companies that we have. So we'll hire sales guys through Ninefold, but then we send them to Greenline to go work, or we'll send them out to South Carolina or Greenway out in Phoenix or wherever. We'll send the guys around.
That is crazy. So Ninefold's kind of like the mother company, right? And are you owner in Ninefold, or where do you stand?
Cool. Yeah, I founded it with two other partners.
Awesome.
So we started up 12 years ago, roughly. It started as Axis, and I hated the name Axis.
Yeah.
It's like, I hated it. My business partner loved it. All of his kids' names start with an A. And so we just joke. It was like his fifth kid. It's like, you had to name it with an A, right? Axis.
Yeah.
And we all hated it because it's like one of those names that's strong, but it doesn't have any meaning really to it. It's just like sound strong. So we changed it to Ninefold because it's got a lot more layers of meaning, and it is something we felt like we could market better.
Yeah. So when did you change the name from Axis to Ninefold?
It was like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Yeah, it's still Axis technically. We do business as Ninefold, but it's still, DBA. Yeah, we didn't get rid of the LLC. We just, doing business DBA as Ninefold. Yeah. Nice.
That's sweet. Yeah, I went through that. We were originally Life Elevated, switched over to Mountain Buff, and naming a company is hard.
Yeah.
It's tricky.
It is. It's a lot of work.
It is a ton of work. And it's like you only get like one chance. And like when you set it up, then it becomes so hard to try and, like if you need to change it, it's like impossible almost. Yeah. What's the story behind Ninefold? Why Ninefold?
So Ninefold is pretty cool. There are a handful, like 3 master katana makers, the samurai cutting sword, that samurai sword. There's a handful of them left alive in the world, or at least there was when we renamed it. There's like 3 of them that apparently make these unbreakable swords still. And so they sell for like an arm and a leg. And they're so rare. But to make a sword unbreakable has to be folded 9 times, a minimum of 9 times. And so we're like, dude, that's our guys going out knocking doors. Every time they go out and knock doors, they get folded. They get a little bit tougher.
Right.
And so they're forging themselves into an unbreakable blade by going out every summer and knocking. And then fold has a lot of other, a couple other connotations. Ninefold your money, come make 9 times as much money.
Yeah.
And welcome to the fold, welcome to the family. So it just had a lot of layers of meaning. Our website's welcome to the fold.
Yeah.
All of it was a lot better than Axis.
Yeah.
Because Axis was super uninspiring.
No, I've loved all your marketing and your events, like all your swag and all your content and everything is like super on point. So
thanks. Cool. Yeah, it's fun to do.
That's cool to see that. So how many sales reps do you guys have currently between all your?
So we're pretty small, relatively speaking, for door-to-door sales companies. Yeah. We're about, we'll be 200 this summer, which is not a lot.
Yeah,
relatively
seems like
speaking.
A lot.
Yeah, but in the industry, it's not. Like there's companies with thousands of door knockers that go out.
Yeah,
we started Ninefold much more from a business point of view than a marketing point of view. Yeah. Like that was our angle, was to build up really solid businesses, to have really good reviews, and to not necessarily grow really fast and look flashy with huge numbers of sales reps and huge account drops during the summer, but mostly really high quality accounts that we're selling that are going to get us a bigger return on our investment. And so that's what we've done. We've been really effective at that, been really good at building these branches up, and they make a lot of money. and they're solid, and we've self-financed everything. But now we're phasing into like hyper growth because we feel like we've got that down. We feel like we got the good foundation with the business side of stuff. So now there's a lot more focus on building up the sales side. So we've doubled in size almost this year.
Wow.
We've already got guys out knocking doors and killing it this year in April, which normally most of our guys aren't starting until May. And we're having huge days already with guys out there. And we've got a lot of guys that are going to break a lot of records for the company this year.
That's amazing.
It's fun. Yeah.
So you guys are you're looking for more sales reps. So if anybody's looking for a good sales job, this is a good place to go.
I think so.
Yeah. What are some of the like differences and like unique opportunities you guys have versus other sales companies?
Well, I think one, the focus of us as a company is different than I think most companies, in that we are super concerned. Like, our primary focus is to develop our sales guys.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, we want them to, we believe that as we develop them and help them become better and have really awesome winning experiences with us, that's going to be what's going to produce more production for the company.
Mm-hmm.
So it's synergistic. Whereas I think a lot of other companies are really dialed in on the production side instead of that first element of building up your guys and getting them leveled up. So when guys come over here, they're going to get an experience that's really personalized. They're not going to be like a little fish in a big ocean. They're going to be like focused on. They're going to get a lot of personal attention. Every one of my sales guys has access to me. They can talk to me, and I'm one of the founders, and I'll reach out to them and respond to them. So we try to keep it as personal as we can and be as connected as we can. And in that vein, we've created in our business structure, it's centered on developing guys to the point where they can become essentially like us. Like, they can own the branches with us. So all of our branches we have right now are owned with our sales guys.
Oh, that's cool.
So they partner with us. They work their way up. They hit the right metrics. They develop the way we tell them to. We have a good relationship with them, and then we'll go into partnership with them. And this is where the real money's at, is in ownership. And that's something that makes us. There's a lot of companies that promise ownership. A lot of it's a mirage. There's a lot of over-promising, and there's a lot of stuff that companies say that's just not accurate. And at the end of the day, a lot of times the ownership, even if it's real, is a mirage because the companies aren't running a business. They're running a marketing company. So that business hasn't really like produced or caught up. Mm-hmm. And so they're not making money ever on that thing. It's kind of like, this, just a hook to keep them stuck there indefinitely. Yeah. Where with us, our guys are making real money in real time when they go into partnership, because we do have that business side so dialed in. Yeah. And that's my tribute to my partners. I don't do much on that side. I'm on the marketing sales side. So I have two partners that I joke around. My business partner, Brian, we keep him chained up to the radiator, and he's just on spreadsheets all day. And that's all he does, is just focus on like making sure we're executing on our servicing side and making sure everything is running smooth and we're providing the best experience for our customers, which in turn creates the best experience for our sales guys coming into partnership with us. Yeah.
There's so many components to business, because you think as you grow and do more volume that naturally you just make more money. But as you like get into it, there's like so many businesses, and I've fallen prey to this. You just start spending more, you're hiring more, and your expenses just get crazy. And then you're like, am I actually even making more money?
Yeah, you're just spinning your wheels.
So that's cool that you have like a system to take, somebody that wants to be into sales, get them trained up to where they can produce. And then from there, they can then teach others how to produce and become an owner. And I've kind of seen Nick, like, is that kind of the journey that Nick's followed through?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Nick has done exceptionally well. And some people think, because Nick's my cousin, so some people will say, used to, I don't think I hear this much, but there was some nepotism because he was my cousin. I'm like, you guys are crazy, man. You guys know Nick. I don't give him any special treatment at all. He's where he's at because he does exactly what we tell him to do. He's got this unique blend of being talented naturally and being coachable, which is very unique. I think it's a rare quality to be as good as he is and as coachable as he is. So I'll be in a room with a bunch of guys. I'm like, okay, how many of you guys have done this? Nobody raised their hand except Nick. Yeah. How many guys have done this? Nobody raised their hand except Nick. Yeah. And I'm like, these are things we've been telling you guys to do, and nobody's doing it except Nick. And then you wonder why Nick is kicking ass. It's because he's doing exactly what we told him to do. Yeah. And he's killing it. I mean, he got a $4 million payout a year ago for one of his branches, and he's got far more equity than that, stacked up, and he makes great money every summer. And we just promoted him to the president of the company. So he's running everything on the sales side. I joke that I kind of work for him now, even though I'm the founder. I'm like, Nick, you tell me what to do, bro.
Oh man,
he's so awesome. Sharp, dude. He's so good.
No, one thing that always impresses me about Nick is he's like, his ability to be focused on something and just like nose at the grindstone is like, he just is like a freaking train and just like cranks out stuff. Even though like when you're not working, he's in the background just cranking stuff out. so I met Nick through another buddy of mine, Nate Capel.
Oh yeah, I know Nate really well.
Yeah,
he worked with me.
Yeah. So and I helped them buy a duplex. So this was all probably, I'll bet it was like 2014, 2015. So like as you guys, and I watched kind of that process with Nick, and it's been impressive to see because I've helped them on a number of transactions. They had a house in Hooper that I helped them sell.
Oh they bought, that was a nice house they had in Hooper.
Yeah, and then they bought one on 25th Street where they're at now, and then they're building the other house. So like it's just been awesome to watch his journey, and he's earned every bit of that. He's earned it.
He is so good, and him and I are so opposite.
Yeah,
like I love that guy. I would take a bullet for him, but we are completely opposite.
How so?
Well, just like you said, like he's just this worker bee. He can stay focused. I can't stay focused on anything, man, for one. And he's super like caught up in the details. In fact, I would say his only weakness is like, it's so often the case with so many of us, our greatest strength is also our greatest weakness. And his is just getting caught up in the details, which makes him nothing slips through the cracks. Yeah, but then we'll be like, Nick, you've just spent the last hour and a half worried about the color of maroon on this. It's not going to move the needle. Right. Like we've got so many other fish to fry, dude. Right. Come back up to the air for surface and listen. Man. But he just goes on these deep dives on the details, and he can't like stop until it's perfected. Where I'm like, that's good enough. That'll work. Let's move on to the next thing.
No, I love that. It's pretty cool that you guys have the machine that can take, kind of your tribe and get them from point A to point B. Cause I feel like a lot of companies don't have that. You kind of get capped out or maxed out, and that can be hard. And just Nick's invited me to some of your trainings, not cause I like want to come sell for you guys, but just cause you guys throw some freaking amazing events too. Yeah. And that's been cool. Like the Jesse Itzler stuff. So, and then before we even started this podcast, you're like, yeah, I have my own podcast and we're doing another one tonight. So it's cool to see everything that you're giving your reps to like help them succeed. And I think that's not easily found in companies or founders and stuff like that. So kudos to you. And if anybody's looking for an amazing company to go work with, like I think Ninefold has you covered. So
appreciate it, man. Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
I'm biased though, obviously.
Right. So What motivates you now that you've been in this for so long? Like, what are your goals and your dreams and your visions like moving forward? Where are you guys going?
Yeah, I mean, it's I think so often the case, at least with people that I listen to, mentors of mine, most of which I haven't met. They're people I listen to their podcasts, read their books, know, like so many people say, it's like you surround yourself with people that are going to level you up, and often those are people you've never met. Right. So I'm in that like frame of mind very much. I try to surround myself when I'm at the gym or when I'm driving with people that are far more advanced and doing better than me. And one thing I've seen that's consistent that I've experienced as well is that your first priority initially is to take care of yourself as a man, level yourself up, get yourself in fighting shape. Then it's to take care of your family, like have a family and take care of that. And that's your primary focus. And once you've handled that, and got that in a place where it's sustainable, then you start to expand. And so the next step, we built up this company traditionally where we owned everything, me and my two partners. And we had guys marketing for us. We paid them good money, but there's no ownership opportunities. But that did well enough for us that we were taking care of all of our needs financially. So then the next natural evolution was to start helping these guys get to where we're at. And so that's been the focus of our company. That's what motivates me right now in Ninefold, is really to develop the guys. It's not to make more money. It's important to make money.
Right.
And it's a scorecard. It's something we measure to see how well we're doing. And of course, we all want to have money and take care of our families. But the real focus and the real value out of what we're doing with Ninefold is leveling these guys up. And that's my passion right now. And now with the podcast, some of the stuff that I'm doing on social media, in the door-to-door sales world, it's you pay a heavy price to do what you do. It's the hardest work anybody's ever going to do. And I always joke around, you get home at the end of the summer and you feel like your soul got scraped out with a dull knife. It's just like hollowed inside. You're like, dude, that was so rough. Right. And then you go back like a masochist and you go back for another round of it. And every one of these summers, it takes a heavy toll on you. But there is so much in the door-to-door sales culture that is amazing. I think sometimes we take for granted, which you're talking about some of these things like the events and the trainings and all of these trips and these perks and everything that goes into it. It's a really high-level lifestyle that door-to-door sales guys are in. And you get to be exposed to a lot of things that most guys have no access to in quote unquote the real world, corporate America. They're just cogs in a machine grinding out their lives at there's some level of consciousness that they're at a dead end job. Right. They're not really that appreciated. They're just like, hey, you're a slave to the mortgage. You got to feed the mouths. You got to show up for work. And you got, like Thoreau said, you get a lot of people just living in quiet desperation. A lot of these guys, they don't have mentors. They don't have a lot of motivation in their life. And so what I've tried to do on the social media page that I've started doing just a few months ago is to take some of this stuff, this wisdom from door-to-door sales, and share it on social media to try and give kind of a look and experience to people that don't have access to it.
And you're crushing it, dude.
Then it's been great. I mean, I didn't expect it to even take off. I thought, I had 1,400 followers when I started doing it. Now I'm at almost 70,000 on social media and almost on Instagram and about 80,000 on TikTok. And it's just every day, it's like 400 or 500 new followers just going up. But how much that is resonating with guys. And I recognize more and more that my idea that most guys don't have access to this is proving true. I get guys hitting me up all the time, dude. Thanks for saying this. This is so important to me. I mean, this is stuff we talk about all the time, every day, ninefold in this door-to-door sales world. Guys are constantly exposed to it. So really, if you ask me what my motivation is to take the blessings that I've had from this experience of door-to-door sales I've done for the last 20 years and try and share that with as many people as I can, because I think it's really important that we look out for other men in the space. And I think that the most important work right now that we can do as a society is make men strong again, like get them leveled up, get guys back in fighting shape.
Yeah. I love that. And that goes in line with like, welcome to the fold, right? Welcome to the family. Like
You're part of the family. Yep.
You guys, yeah. And I resonate with that so much. Like, I feel like this generation of men, like men were born to chase the princess, kill the dragon, and then ride off into the sunset. And I feel like nowadays you look at men and most are not doing so well physically, right? They're out of shape, overweight. They're not feeling good. They don't know how to control their diets and their physical habits. And so I'm sure if you look at the hormone levels, like it's all over the board, right? And there's just like the passion is like almost out the window. Like they're a slave to their job. Sometimes their families, like they're a cog in the wheel. And it's sad to see that like the warriors that men used to be, like you don't find very many guys like that anymore. So that's, yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to jam off that for a second, because this is my mantra right now, right? Like, and I'm speaking from a place of having experienced what I'm about to say, like having gone through that and had to learn a lot of hard lessons. I went through a really rough first marriage, and I had to learn what I'm about to talk about. That then this part doesn't apply necessarily to me, but a lot of men, at least more and more men, are growing up without a man in the home. Like a lot of more single moms are raising them. And so you have these generation of guys that are coming up that haven't had great mentorship. They haven't had a father figure to help transition them from a boy into being a man.
Right.
They've been surrounded by a woman most of their life, either with their mom or their teachers at school. And then they get married, and almost always guys make the critical mistake of sacrificing their tribe for the woman. So they give up all their buddies, and now they're in this world of just another female, and they have no access to masculinity. And then they're conditioned by government, by the education system, by church, that basically spays and neuters men into being the nice guys and being subservient. And basically men nowadays are supposed to be glorified servants to their wives. And it's a lose for everybody, because women don't find that attractive. I've found that more and more, especially on my social media. I have so many women that like, I'm speaking to men, and I'm speaking about man issues. And so I was worried initially that I was going to offend a lot of women because I'm pretty direct on what I think. Yeah. I'm finding more and more women resonating with that. Thank you for saying this. That's like, I want men that are masculine again. I want somebody that puts me in my place. I want a man that leads. I want a man that makes too many men are in this like lapdog sort of mindset where it's like, what do you want, honey? Like catering everything to her needs. And she loses all interest in them. And so you have these guys that are in these sexless marriages that have no chemistry. You have women that are unsatisfied. And you have a man that constantly is trying to conform himself to what the woman thinks she wants. Right. And most of the time they're not even conscious of what they want. So it's just changing every day. One day she wants him to be Doritos. The next day she wants him to be Cheez-Its. The next day, and really what she wants is just a guy to be a man and like step up and be a badass and be like somebody you could respect. Right. He doesn't respect himself. She doesn't respect him. And it's just because it's not even the guy's fault. It's just because so much of society has conditioned men to be weak and told them that's the highest virtue is being soft. And I'm like, I don't know if I can swear on this.
Swear, dude.
Fuck that shit, dude. Like, we've got to start acting like men again, which means you got to take ownership of your own destiny. You got to level up. You got to surround yourself with a tribe. Right. I think absolutely to be in your masculine energy, you have to have other masculine men around you. Yeah. That doesn't shortchange any responsibilities that men have to take care of their families. I'm a family man. I'm dedicated to my wife. I'm remarried now, but I went through a rough first marriage where I did exactly that. Like I was in it for way too long. I dealt with way too much disrespect and abuse in that marriage because I constantly would go to church and told your greatest duty is to serve your wife, and God made his greatest creation for last, a woman. I really bought into that. And so I was like, if marriage isn't working, it's my fault. And if I can't figure out how to make this work, then it's my job to be stoic and go down with the ship and like just be as nice as I can. And I've completely changed that mentality, and it's made one for a much better second marriage. I pinch myself at how good it is, second marriage, but I had to learn those lessons the hard way. And then I had to apply them in this second marriage. And sometimes it's uncomfortable to be a man. Sometimes you have to do things that you are awkward or make people feel uncomfortable, but you have to be willing to do that. You have to be willing to you have to be willing to just be a man up and do what you got to do.
Which coming to when you guys came to the gym, all of that was I'm like, man, guys need more experiences like this, right? And so one thing, you're a Jesse Itzler fan, so am I. He has his big ass calendar.
Yeah, he sent me one. Yeah, I just got it the other day.
And those are awesome, but he picks one defining moment that's going to set the course of his year. One thing that's going to, he calls it his misogi, right?
Yeah. I've listened to this. Yeah, I love this. I'm totally with you.
His misogi, and there's another book that a buddy of mine read, and I haven't read it yet, but a misogi is basically something that there's two rules. It has to stretch you more than you've ever been stretched before in some area. And rule number 2 is you can't die. So it's it's pretty challenging, right? And that's something that I've been living by for the past few years. So every year I'll pick something that I'm I'm going to try this. I don't know if I'm going to succeed at it, but I'm going to try it. And it's going to be hard. It's going to stretch myself. Last year, it was the 29-0-29 event. Have you heard of those? You summit a mountain as many times as it takes, as if you were summiting Mount Everest in one setting.
Oh, yeah.
So it's again, Jesse Itzler kind of came up with the idea.
So is that 30,000 feet?
30,000 feet.
From sea level
in elevation.
To the top of Mount Everest.
So they do it at Snow Basin.
You do it in a single day?
Yeah, you have 36 hours.
Okay, so a day and a half.
Yeah. And
that's awesome.
You hike up, ride the gondola down. Hike up, ride the gondola down. And you do it as many times as it takes to summit Everest in one setting.
Hours,
which is crazy. So I did that last year. It was one of the coolest experiences in my life. So cool. I recommend it because I know you've done some pretty awesome stuff physically. That was sweet. This year I'm working on I hired a trainer and I want to do a bodybuilding show.
Okay.
I'm just I want to check off as many of these bucket list items, because I don't, one of my biggest fears is looking back on my life and being man, I squandered it, right? I didn't do the things that I want. I want my kids to have that picture hey, this was dad when he was 33 up on stage, ripped. I want to know what that feels like. And so I'm 6 months in with this trainer, and I've got to the leanest body weight I've ever been. Now I'm on a reverse diet, but I've learned so much in the past 6 months of just dieting and meal prepping and learning about testosterone and hormones and how important sleep is and all these different things. It has amplified all the other areas of my life. The more discipline I've got in some of these other habits, it's helped my marriage, it's helped my business. And so when we have guys come up to the gym and we're doing ice baths and who can hold the plank the longest, that's just building up these men, it's sharpening their sword. And I feel most people, unless they have a tribe or, fold, they don't get that exposure, right?
There's a lot.
And you give that to your tribe. And I think that's huge. What are some things you have coming up, bucket list items or things that you're...
Yes. So we've got, in the company, we have bucket list trips. We call it the bucket list trip. Yeah. So the guys earn it and they go on the bucket list trip. So last year it got blown up because we're, pun intended, because we were going to go to Egypt. And then things got crazy over there in the Middle East. So we felt as a company, we had to call it off. But we try to do a bucket list trip every year. The year before that, speaking of mountain climbing, we went to Everest. Yeah. We went out to Nepal. We hiked up all through the Himalayas, went to these tea houses, did these safaris.
That's amazing.
Flew up to base camp on a helicopter, dude. It was one of the coolest things I've ever done. Just looking at Mount Everest just right there. It was awesome. Made me want to climb it, actually. I think in bucket list trip, maybe when I'm done with Ninefold in 6 or 7 years, go do the full commitment to try and summit it. Yeah.
Dude, that's amazing.
There was a real pull there when I was looking at it that I never felt like I wanted to summit Everest. I've always listened to people summit. I read into thin air, and I've watched documentaries on it and been fascinated by the literal and metaphorical Mount Everest, you know? But when I was looking at it, I was like, dude, that would be a bucket list thing that I'm interested in, but that's years from now. I got to wait for the kids to grow up a little bit more, and because chance you don't make it back, right?
I know. Yeah, so it is risky.
There's a little bit of risk to it. But the year before that, we hiked to the top of Kilimanjaro for our bucket list trip. So I've got some of those events with our sales guys. I try to make these bucket list things with my tribe now as much as I can, like with people that I want to work with and do stuff with. But I wanted to kind of go off of what you were saying, like what is the purpose of life? It kind of goes along with what you're saying, like what are your goals?
Yeah.
Like I have 3 things I've kind of boiled life down to as I've gotten older. I think as you get older, things become more clear about what your priorities are, or maybe they should be. I have 3 things that life has boiled down. One is the truth. Like that's my most important quest, is to pursue the truth, particularly with myself, so that I remove self-deception. I become more self-aware. I'm more concerned about being authentic and truthful with who I am and my expression, how I approach the world. My next is to take care of the people on my watch. Your family, your friends, the people that work with you, your tribe. And the third is to gain as many experiences as I can. And it's about that simple. It's like what you were saying is it's like, I want to live an exciting life. I don't want it to be boring. That's always been a huge fear of mine, is like being mediocre.
Yeah.
Like just like getting to the end of your life and be like, it was a good life. It was, I want it to be like, dude, I want to go out with my spurs on, like I want to like life to come to an end. Like you're in a shark cage and it breaks and you get torn apart by a great white or something, not that I want to die if I get eaten by a shark, but that would be the way to go out. Like, some people are like, nah, that would be horrible. I'm like, what do you think? I'd rather get eaten by a shark than spend like 3 months in, the hospital dying of cancer, which is where most people are going, or heart disease, so it's like, I'd rather have that kind of lifestyle where you just take it by the horns and live it. Yeah. So it's just really those 3 things are my mantras in life. And some of that includes these bucket list things that I really want to do. Everest is probably the biggest one. I want to do a trip to Patagonia and get down there and then take the cruise down to Antarctica, knock off that continent, make sure I hit all the continents at least once in my life,
Patagonia is a big one on me. There's Circa the Towers, I think, down there, or no, Torre del Paine is like a loop that you can hit. I think it's in Patagonia that I've researched, and it's like a long trek that you do.
You hike it?
Yeah. And then there's all these little camps.
You're like just going through the Andes or whatever.
Yeah. That's one that I want to do. But I love that you have these challenges, and you recently did, I guess it's been a few years, Ironman with Iron Cowboy.
Yeah.
Like that. Talk about that a little bit.
So that's just pure peer pressure. Speaking of pure peer pressure, speaking of Nick, effing Nick, dude. So I literally like 2 weeks before I did the Ironman, my uncle was asking me if I'd ever do a marathon, and I'd done a half marathon up to that point. I was like, dude, there's no way in hell I'm ever going to do a marathon. I have no interest in doing a marathon. And I train hard in the gym. I really push myself. It's my therapy. I always joke around, it's cheaper than therapy to go to the gym, but really I just love it. Like I love the feeling afterwards. Joe Rogan articulated it so well in one of his podcasts, is when he said it is exactly how I felt. He's like, I work out really, really hard, so I'm somebody I respect. And I was like, I feel that way. That wasn't, I'd never articulated like that in my head, but it made so much sense because that's I work out hard so that I know that I can take on the rest of the day. Like if I go hard in the morning, whatever else happens, I'm in fighting shape for it. I did that this morning, and running 10 miles on the treadmill is going to be harder than whatever else I got to do today. So I've had that kind of focus. Anyways, Nick was doing the Ironman. The Ironman did, for anybody who doesn't know, Ironman or Iron Cowboy, sorry, the Iron Cowboy did 101 Ironmans in 101 days. And he had this thing where you could go down and do the Ironman with him for free. You could just join. So there's just the community was involved in, which was really cool. So we went down, I can't remember, it was like number 76 for him. So 76 consecutive Ironmans he's on, and I'm doing my first. Nick was already planning on it. So he'd been training, he'd been getting in the pool. And the night before he goes down, we're having a meeting at the office. And he's like, bro, you should come and do the Ironman with me tomorrow. And I'm like, I just literally said 2 weeks ago, I'm not going to do a marathon. Why would I ever do an Ironman? But you know, he puts that seed in your head, and then Nick's got this, he's like playing chess all the time. So he's like, I mean, if you don't feel like you're man enough for it, I get it. Like it'll be hard. It'll be really hard. You probably shouldn't do it.
Probably couldn't do
start
it.
Doing it. I started getting to me. I was like, and I do train hard in the gym. I swim every week. I run on the treadmill every week. I bike. At the time I was biking a lot. I'd done the Lotaja a couple of times. I'd done the relay on the Lotaja. So I was in good biking shape.
Yeah.
And so I was actually curious. I was curious how just without training for that specifically, just how my everyday training would hold up. And we did it. I went down with him. I met him there like 5 o'clock in the morning down in Linden at the swimming community pool. There was like probably 30 people there, including Iron Cowboy, and you swim all these laps and then get out and get on your bike and you ride. And then you do the Ironman or the marathon at the end of it. And we did it, and we hung with him. We finished with him, and we got a shirt and everything. You got to sign it. And as crazy as that was, and it was crazy, dude, I was having some serious physiological issues at the end of the day and the next day. Dude, he just did that 75 times before, you know, like, and I'm like dying. Like that was almost killed me. I did it and I went hard, but it would made me I think that he's got to be the toughest guy in the world. Yeah. All respect to David Goggins, but I think Iron Cowboy has got to be the toughest guy on the planet.
That is crazy. How long did it take you guys to do it?
I don't remember. I think it was almost 14 hours.
Really?
Yeah.
That's impressive.
It was long.
I went to my uncle's and I think he was just under 12 hours, like 11 something.
Yeah.
And he'd been training for a long time and he's an animal. So that's impressive. Kudos to you.
I could be wrong. I think it was about that. I don't remember. It was mostly delirious on the run.
That's on my list too. I want to do an Ironman at some point. Just try it. And you're like a thick guy too. Yeah. Like you don't see very many Ironman guys that have muscle, right? It's just more mass to carry around. And
dude, when I run, it looks like a train derailing. There's like springs popping off and bolts. It's not pretty, dude.
Oh man. No, that's amazing. What advice do you have for like new salespeople getting into sales? Like what's your biggest tips, tricks, or things that you can, for somebody just getting into sales?
You know, I would probably say the same advice that I would say to any young man right now. And I actually just did a training. You were at the Jesse Itzler one, and we just had one a few weeks ago to kick off the season opener. It's where we kick off the knocking season, get all of our sales guys ready to go out. And so a lot of guys ask me this, like, what advice would you give me? I'm just getting started, a lot of these rookies. And so I was kind of thinking about that. And I was thinking, what would I tell these kids? What would I tell myself if I went back, that young kid that was just got off an LDS mission and getting recruited to go out and knock doors in Detroit for a security company? And what would I tell that kid if I could go back where I'm at now at 43, almost 44, and go back and say, here's what I would encourage you to do, because it'll expedite things a lot faster. Mm-hmm. And so that was the nature of the talk I gave. And what I would tell them and what I would tell myself is I would say, learn to love the work. Misogi, what you were just talking about this idea of doing something that stretches you and don't die. I'm relatively religious. I've dismissed a lot of dogmas. I've gotten older, but I go to church and I find a lot of value from that. And I read my scriptures every morning. But I've found more and more the video game, the simulation lens fits better for a lot of ways of processing what the purpose of life is. And in a video game, it's just that. You have like 3 objectives in a video game. It's like stay alive as long as you can, level up, and win the prizes. Like that's kind of what you do. Yeah. And like there's always a boss you have to fight at the end of the level, and each level is to prepare you for the next big challenge. And there's always a bigger pot of gold at the end of that boss. And I mean, this is so true to life, right? Like it makes me think God created a simulation. We're kind of figuring that out by creating our own simulations with these video games, but it makes a lot more sense to me. Like that's my purpose, is to level up, get to the next level. And there's this thing that you get to the next level, you beat the boss and you get the pot of gold. What I've realized is that pot of gold, whatever that is materialistically or whatever, the real value is what you developed, right? Yeah. Like it's the process. That's the real pot of gold. Right. Like whatever that is, just like one of the coins, the shiny coins on the video game, but the real value is the development.
Have you heard the quote, the work works more on you than you work on it?
Hormozy, right? Yeah. Dude, he's a Jedi master.
Yeah.
And I believe that. And he was the one that articulated that really well for me as well. It's like, love to do the work instead of loving the reward at the end of the work, which is where I've been most of my life. Right. It's like, I'm working hard. I hate it, but I'm going for this goal. For this goal. Over the last few years, I've really taken that to heart. Like actually be grateful for that whole process. And when you're in it, love it and enjoy it and really maximize your effort in it. So you're not just trying to put in enough effort to get the prize at the end, but you're putting in the effort right now to make yourself bigger, faster, stronger, because that's the real prize. And so that would be the advice that I would tell anybody. And door-to-door sales is such a catalyst for that. It's going to test you. It's going to be this huge. And one of my favorite quotes one of my buddies said is, the best thing that ever happened to David was Goliath. And I think that's true for all of us in our lives. The best things that happen to us are often the biggest level, that adversity, that Goliath that's waiting for us on the horizon that we're terrified of. And facing that Goliath and coming out of that sets the trajectory for your whole life. And so value that whole process, value the challenge, value the Goliaths, and find joy in that.
Yeah.
And it's something I've only been waking up to the last few years, and it's been a game changer for me.
No, that's amazing. A few things I wanted to go off on that. I think there's nothing to lose by doing door-to-door sales. Like, everybody should experience it and try it. I have. And there was a ton that I learned. There's just so much that you can learn from it. And like you said, like, learn to love the process. You're going to like what you gain from learning sells, because everything sells. Marriage is sales, having kids is sales, like everything that we do
100%
is sales, right? And so the more you can learn that, and even going out for a few summers, like, there's going to be so much to gain from that, just life experiences, right? Like, I served an LDS mission, and just being out on the doorsteps, knocking on doors. Like, I was in the Dominican Republic, and it was like hot, dogs were chasing us, like just trying to learn another language. And I look back on those memories with such fondness. Like, it was just such a good experience, like, so cool. But it was my Goliath at that time. And had I not gone through it, like, I wouldn't be half the man I am today. And so, like, the more challenges we can put ourselves through, and the more that we can like stretch and grow, I think that the quicker we'll get to the person that we want to become. But it seems like counterintuitive, because most of us, like all of society, is about convenience and what's the easiest path, least path of resistance, right? You want food, go grab a bowl of cereal, milk, and it's right there. Like, we want everything like easy and simple. And I think that's where, going back to men nowadays, I think everybody, just our whole society, is just getting soft. And we need to embrace, like, no, like, we need to stretch ourselves, challenge ourselves, do things that like really push our limits to see what we're capable of. In November, I got onto the fasting train. I'm like, could I do a 7-day fast? I think you guys have done this.
I haven't done the 7. I've done a few 3 days.
Well,
I haven't done a
Has Nick done it, or is it Zach?
Zach has done.
Zach's all over it.
He's done like 2 of those.
Yeah. So Zach's actually the one that motivated me to do a 7-day. I'm like, I've done a 4-day, but I should do a 7-day. And it's just amazing what the body can do.
Yeah.
Like, I think we just get stuck in these ruts, and we're like, and going back to your life video game scenario, like, or your goals, like, tell the truth. And I think so many of us are like, oh, I can't do that. And like, that instantly right there is a lie to yourself. I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and this lady, she was like, I'm not going to tell a lie for a year. And it kind of blew up her life, because she was too honest. But she's like, saying I can't or won't, 95% of the time, it's just a lie to yourself. Like, we're just saying, like, I don't want to. Like, let's be honest. Like, can't, or you don't want to, right? And so rephrasing these, like how we're talking to ourselves, and then just focusing on growing as a person. And I think that's, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like you guys are just blowing up and exploding with growth. And I think it's because you're not so focused on the money anymore, but you're focused on the people and the relationships and helping other people grow. And I think that's where you get like the exponential growth, where it's just like good karma, right? Like, it's there to people that focus on other people and growing other people. I think that's where you see these huge.
I think there's a real thing to energy, right?
Yeah.
Like, and maybe that's karma, but the energy that you create will be your world, your reality. Like, everything's energy. At the end of the day, we're energy. Like, everything is energy. And so when you're doing things like that, helping other people level up, it creates such a positive, synergistic energy in your own life. It's actually kind of selfish. Like, the more you help somebody, the better you get.
Right.
Like, it's a massive return. And it's, I listened to somebody talk recently about, it was an older talk, but it was a talk at BYU where the guy, he wasn't LDS, but he was talking about the science of giving and how the more you give scientifically, they can measure the more you get returned. So people that are more generous get bigger returns back in life. And he was trying to understand it, but it was proven like they can study this and measure this. The more generous somebody is, the more life will give them back.
It's just that abundance mindset.
It's something about that energy, right? When you're in that state of energy where you're like, it's prosperity energy, everything's good energy. Like I'm helping people, they're helping me.
Right.
It just becomes, you can't shut it off. It starts becoming this unstoppable force. And the truth, Jordan Peterson made this point. He's like my ordained prophet. I listen to him all the time. But he made this point one time about synergy. And he said, when you start making these small incremental improvements, it's relatively hard to see, right?
Yeah.
Or the opposite. If you're making things where you're setbacks, right? Small incremental setbacks, you don't see the gap at first, and you don't really see yourself progressing that much. And this is the big challenge both ways, because you can get on a wrong trajectory and be okay with it because you don't see the immediate consequences for it, at least not the significant consequences. But there becomes this huge drop-off, exponential growth or exponential drop-off. And that's why you'll see this massive disparity between people, is because we make these small losses or small wins, and they start to become more and more synergistic, and that energy starts to become more and more of a reality. And he talks about that, like even with the constellations, it goes to that thing Christ taught, that principle that Christ taught, where, him who hath is going to be given, he who doesn't have is going to be taken away.
Yeah.
You think that sounds really harsh, and people listen to like, you're going to punish somebody that doesn't have a lot, and you're going to help the guy that already has a lot. That's bull. But if you really look at it, he's not saying that's what I'm doing. He's saying that's how it works.
Yeah.
Like this is the process. The more you win, the more you win. The more you lose, the more you lose.
Right.
And it becomes this energy, this self-fulfilling prophecy, whatever you want to call it. But that's where you see Jordan Peterson even talks about the stars, like how they're clustered. 99% of all stars are clustered together, and then there's just open nothingness. And
that's crazy.
He talks about on the economic status, and it's really interesting. It's been something that's shaped the way that I think about things. And so I'm constantly trying to find those small wins to stack, to constantly be adding energy and improvement to myself, and being really aware if I'm making decisions or losses and setbacks that I can course correct those. So I don't make that gap.
Well, on your Instagram, you have that, like the definition between heaven and hell, and it's the people sitting around the table, and they have the super long spoons. Like that was so good. I watched that, and I had heard that in the past, but it just left me. But basically, the spoons were so long that the people couldn't feed themselves. But once they realized, like, oh, we can feed other people, like that was heaven.
Yep.
And then the hell one was like they were all trying to fight, like frustrated, trying to feed themselves, and they couldn't do it. And
maybe heaven and hell are literal places, but I don't really think so anymore. I mean, I know in the scriptures we're told that's how it is, but I think it's more what you create. Like heaven and hell is created here on earth. And wherever we go, whatever happens after this life, I think is going to be the same format. You're going to create heaven or hell.
Yeah.
So in that parable, which of course I didn't make up, it was some attributed to a rabbi. Can't remember who it was back in the early 1900s who wrote that, penned that. But yeah, that idea, they're all sitting around the same, bowl of soup, and everybody's trying to feed themselves, and it's hell, and it's, selfishness. And then when you start to look to how you can help and build other people up, then that energy is contagious, and somebody starts helping you out, and now you're feeding each other, and you're starting to create something like heaven.
Yeah. No. Well, dude, this has been amazing. I know we're getting close on time. We haven't talked much about your family and like your hobbies and passions. You want to cover that a little bit as we wrap up?
So, sure. I think this is important because divorce is really common. I went through a divorce, waited till I was 30 to get married, thought I was making the right decision. And I probably was. Like, it was a best learning experience. I'm really grateful for my ex-wife. She taught me so much. She's a phenomenal mother, and she gave me 3 children. But it was a really, really hard 8.5 years. It was the hardest, speaking of Goliath, and talking about going, through the refiner's fire. Like it was 8.5 years of hell. And I didn't know how to be a man, and we didn't have a great dynamic. And so it ended, and it was the hardest thing that I'd ever gone through in my entire life. Still to this day, by far. Like nothing. You feel like, I was having I felt like I was having a Job-esque experience on a much smaller level, but my family was getting taken away from everything I'd earned was getting taken away from me. Like my identity, my faith in God, because I'd asked for this thing to work so much and prayed, and it didn't work. And then my health I was having back problems. So I couldn't even get to the gym to get my therapy. And so I was just like going through the worst time of my life. And like so many things, it became the catalyst for the best time of my life. And I think there is a direct correlation between how much you suffer and how much joy you can experience. I think they're related. So the less suffering, the less joy. The more suffering, the more joy ultimately that you can have. Yeah. And I think that's scriptural. I think that goes along with what we talk about with the atonement in Christ. And it has been, that was a catalyst that set me up for a lot of joy in my life. I learned so much through that process, and I'll be forever grateful for that marriage. But I'm so grateful it came to an end.
Right.
And now I've met somebody that I'm much more compatible with, but I also went into it much better and wiser than I went into my first marriage.
Right.
And we just had a little kid. So I have 3 kids that I have 50% custody from my first marriage.
Oh, nice.
And the sun rises and sets on those kids, man. They're my favorite thing in the whole world. And then I just have a 9-month-old with my wife. It's her
awesome.
first, and so my 4th. And he's been so cool. Like, I feel like I'm kind of like having this Abrahamic experience in my old age. She's 11 years older than me. So it's like the stereotypical patriarch, bringing in a younger and then procreating still, to warm my old bones in my old age. So she's an amazing person. In fact, she did door-to-door sales for years. She's like the #1 female in the industry. She worked at Vivint for a long time.
Oh, really?
And when I started dating her, there was this, like, Vivint is the biggest door-to-door sales company ever. Right?
Yeah.
They're the gold standard of door-to-door sales companies. And she's like the princess of Vivint. And here's this pest control guy. And every is just like, who is this guy?
Right. Yeah.
I'd go on these trips and they would circle around me like
so
wolves, dude. It's just like, how are we doing this? Who is this guy? And now I'm friends with all of them, but she's a legend herself. And we've had just such an amazing marriage. Like, it is night and day difference. And so, I think there's so many life lessons I've learned and stuff I try to share with people that are going through the similar experiences. Like, your hardest, darkest nights are going to end up being the catalyst for your brightest days,
right? Your
brightest mornings. And so as long as you don't quit, as long as you don't get stuck in that darkness. And there's a doctrine the Puritans used to talk about called the regenerative descent. It kind of goes along with this, where to ascend, you have to first descend, right? You have to go into the darkness. You have to go into this place of uncertainty and confusion, being lost, for you to be able to come back out reborn as a better, different person,
right?
Ascend to greater heights than you've ever ascended before. And I've just found that to be so damn true of life.
Right.
Like, and I know there's a lot of people that have a lot of problems with the idea of God because they think God is unjust because bad things happen to good people. And I'm like, yeah, but the bad things are the good things, man. Like, if you really think about it, if you don't get stuck in it, if you don't let yourself get lost in the pain and suffering and allow yourself to internalize that and become a victim, if you can just keep putting one foot in front of the other, keep waking up every day, no matter what kind of shit is going on in your life, you just keep turning up. You don't lay down. You don't let it beat you down. You just keep putting one foot in front of the other. One day, you're going to come out of that and you'll be like, damn, that was so good for me.
Right.
Whatever it was, no matter how bad it was, you will come out of that intensely grateful for it. And it will shape you in a way that you could never expect. And it will set you up for a level of success you never could have got without that. I'm totally convinced of that.
Yeah.
So why do bad things happen to good people? It's because they're not bad. They're actually really good things.
Right.
We just don't see it that way.
Well, even in the scriptures, like, Jesus wept. Like, that's profound. Like, Christ the Savior wept. Like, he went through pain. He went through suffering. So why should we think it should be any different for us, right? And that's a purpose. Like, I believe we're down here to be challenged and learn and grow. But it seems like most of our goals are like, no, I want like all this fun and financial freedom and lots of money and sit on the beach all day. But in reality, you can only do those things for so long before that then gets boring.
Suffocating.
Right? Yeah.
It destroys your soul.
So it's just like, I have found so much joy and happiness and just passion in like the grind and like almost self-suffering. Like, hey, let's do an ice bath. Like my wife's like, you enjoy that. I'm like, nobody enjoys an ice bath, right? It's hard. Like it takes your breath away every time, but every time I come out of it stronger and better. Same with the gym, right? Like I love the gym and like, I'll just go in there and beat myself up, but then I come out like feeling better. It's just interesting, right?
I enjoy the confidence and the self-respect I get from doing hard things, not the actual hard thing.
Right.
That's what I actually enjoy is that like level of self-respect you have when you do something hard willingly. When you choose to do something hard, you respect yourself more.
Yeah. And
you trust yourself more.
As you've been through all the divorce and things like that, like I'm sure you have a whole nother level of relationship with yourself and respect and just foundation that's been built underneath you that you can build up.
And what's interesting, not to go off on a tangent as we're kind of closing up too much, but somebody once said this, it's one of my favorite quotes. If you don't believe in a God that requires you to fundamentally change, then you're probably just believing in an idolized version of yourself. And so we need to fundamentally change if we're really in pursuit of the truth, like we were just talking about. If that's really your goal is the truth, then we first have to recognize how far removed we are from the truth. So pursuing the truth isn't going to look like a little tiny change here, a little adjustment, and then I'm pretty much the same, which I think is so common in the religious settings. Like people are like, if I just do these little things and check these boxes, I'm good to go. That's not really in pursuit of the truth. Like if you're in pursuit of the truth, you have to be prepared to go really hard places, really dark places, especially with yourself, as you become more and more self-aware, facing your own demons, facing your own bullshit, your own lies, your own self-victimizations, your own excuses that you've made, and go deep on that, which is a heavy soul stretching process. But you have to do that, I believe, ultimately to like get where you need to go. I had a point I was going to say on this. The idolized version of God is like, so when I went through that divorce, right? Like I came out of that divorce ultimately with a completely different relationship with God. And in turn, a completely different relationship with myself that looked fundamentally different than when I went into that. And I think that's important. It's a life lesson for me. And I know there's going to be more of those moments in my life that really stretch me, but I have to be okay with that. Like it should change me. I should come out of those things a little more authentic, maybe a lot more authentic, right? And be different. And so I don't know. I just encourage everybody, if you're on that pursuit of truth, if that's important to you, and I think it should be. I think it should be important to all of us. I think Basil said it right. People are more concerned about community than they are about the truth, fitting in than they are about telling the truth. But if you're on that pursuit of truth, it's going to be amazing for you, but it'll be soul stretching. It'll force you to reevaluate everything in your life.
Are there any like books or things that you've read that like if you were to say in line with what you're talking about, finding your truth and stuff, what books and resources have you found that have helped you with that journey?
First and foremost, the Gospels.
Yeah.
The 4 Gospels, they're my favorite. I read them every morning. And I've read the Bible cover to cover probably a dozen times. I've probably read the New Testament like 2 or 3 dozen times. But I only read the Gospels now, just because even though they're interpretations of interpretations, so you have to take everything you read with a certain degree of salt, a certain grain of salt. There is something about just reading directly what Christ said to level up and come to the truth. And I think he set the framework amongst everything else Christ did. He showed the framework of what it means to be a perfect man. And so read your scriptures every day. I read the Book of Mormon every day. The Book of Mormon inspires me and changes my life. So those are 2 big books. Another one is Man's Search for Meaning. There's so many books. I mean, I could rattle off now because I love to read, but Man's Search for Meaning by Frankl Viktor Frankl is just, that was a life-changing book for me. Yeah.
Would be any third one? I guess you have Book of Mormon, the Gospels, and Man's Search for Meaning. Those are all good. Amazing.
Yeah. I liked, this is in a different vein, but Les Mis inspired me and changed my life. Like that's one of but as far as a fiction book, that's probably the greatest fiction book I've ever read.
I haven't read that one.
Les Mis is so good. It's that's life-changing.
Jordan Peterson, you mentioned that. He's amazing.
Oh yeah. And his 12 rules is 12 really good. Life. Like so 12 rules for life. I've been to a couple of his lectures.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's interesting because when he lectures, you go there and, they're always different. And they're just these deep dives on something. The last one he did was on Abraham. I was down in Salt Lake and he talks about Abraham and he's doing all this work on the Old Testament. It was so good, but you have to stay with him because he goes so deep on it. And you realize when he's up on the stage, he's not talking to you. He's talking to himself. Like he's wrestling through these ideas. Like his eyes are closed. He's like, when I speak, I have to get energy from the crowd. Like I'm looking for responses and stuff. He doesn't care what the crowd is doing. Quiet. His eyes are closed and he's just like working through this stuff right in front of you. And it's like just watching that process was brilliant.
I need to go to one of his events.
That's so good.
I loved his books. Yeah. We were doing a 100-mile backpacking trip and I downloaded his book and we listened to it throughout the trip. And it was just so good going through the 12 rules and then chatting about it with my buddies that we were backpacking with. Just so good. But, well, dude, this has been amazing. I appreciate you coming on. If anybody needs any pest control services, Greenline. And then same with if you're young and ambitious really, and want to get into sales, like you have some good opportunity there.
Yeah, absolutely. Peyton, thanks for having me on. It's been great.
Yeah.
It's been
awesome.
Enjoyable.
We'll catch you next time.
Thanks, man.